Now by legendary LSU baseball coach, retired. He just got off the golf course, according to what he just told us. Paul Mainieri, welcome to the second ever Hit It To Hoover podcast with Jake Nichols and Mitch Davis. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, Coach?
I'm doing very well. It's a little strange feeling to be on the golf course instead of getting a team ready for a season, but such is life. And, I'm happy to talk about college baseball today.
I'm going to turn it over to Jake Nichols. He's the one with a little time restraints. He's got to go to a dinner for his soon-to-be fiance. So, Coach, I'm going to have you field a couple questions from Jake.
Hey, wait a minute. Jake, before you ask, when he says soon-to-be fiance, does she know that she's soon-to-be a fiance?
So yes, she does. So this is fine to air like it is.
Okay.
So yes, we have talked about it enough that yes, she is fully aware. But
I was afraid Mitch was spilling the beans.
He is not letting the cat out of the bag on any information. So I guess feeling on opening day whenever you're not in a dugout after you have been for so long.
Well, it's certainly going to be a unique sensation for me. I've spent the last 4 decades in a dugout coaching a college baseball team. So, it pretty much becomes your life and all of a sudden it's not. So as you might imagine, it's going to be very strange for me. It's already been strange, to be honest with you, because, your circadian rhythm, so to speak, is geared towards a baseball academic calendar. And this past summer, after I had retired, I wasn't on the road recruiting. This fall, I wasn't preparing a team, molding a team for the spring. And, the other night I went to our first pitch dinner here at LSU, which we began about 15 years ago. And now I'm sitting out in the audience. So I've already had some, adjustments to have to make. And I'm sure opening night's going to be extremely different for me. I'll miss the excitement. I'll miss the, the packed houses at Alec Box Stadium. I'm going to miss, the great competition in the SEC. But, everything in life has its, shelf life, so to speak. And when I made the decision to retire at the end of last season, it was something I'd been thinking about actually for several months. And I just feel like my tank kind of ran out of gas. I loved my job. I still loved it. But it was just becoming increasingly difficult to put the energy into it that I once had as a young man. 64 years old, some people handle it better, than others. I never thought that I'd reach this point because I always, look forward to going to work every day, but it happened. And, I think it was good of me to evaluate it in its entirety, not make a knee-jerk decision, on a short term. So I'm comfortable with my decision. That doesn't mean I'm not going to miss it at times, and it's not going to be unusual for me, but I think it was the right time for me to pass the baton on to somebody with a little bit more youth, a little bit more energy, and take the program from this point on.
Perfect. So going off that, talking about passing the baton, that first pitch dinner, what have your conversations been like with Coach Johnson? And I guess what are your thoughts on where the program is headed and the hands that it's in now, given that he took over so recently?
Well, Jake, I feel very good about the state of the program as we handed it off. It's been a fun 15 years, except for, of course, the 14th year, which was interrupted, after 17 games or whatever. We never got to play an SEC game. But for the most part, I have such fond feelings about the whole time that I've been at LSU and really my entire coaching career. But you always want to leave a program better off than when you got it. And I don't mean that as a knock on, how the program was when I got here, but I felt good. I don't mean to sound egotistical at all, but I felt good about the status of the program as we handed it off. We won a regional last year, lost in the super regional, as you know, but we did it with a lot of young players. I think on an opening SEC game last year, we had two guys in the lineup that had even seen an SEC game. So, they've been hardened now by going through an SEC schedule. Young players like Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan, Jordan Thompson. I think those guys are going to really benefit from last year's experience. I think the team is going to be very solid, very good team with experience now. We had a really good recruiting class, and then Jay brought in a few transfers to strengthen the team as well. I've spent a lot of time with Jay. He's been really good to me and to Skip Bertman since he's been here. I think he really respects the tradition and history of the program. He's not tried to push us aside or anything like that. And I've kind of gone out of my way to stay out of his way. And I'm there when he asked. And, we've probably talked, a dozen or 15 times, since this school year has begun. He asked my opinion, and I give him my opinions when he asks them. And I think he's going to do a really good job. He's a very solid coach. He's obviously a great recruiter. He works, relentlessly at recruiting, but I think he's a very good game coach as well and a very good instructor. So I think the program is in real good hands.
Awesome. So I know you mentioned a couple guys that we got to see last year in Dylan Cruz and Trey Morgan, but I do want to ask about one guy that you're obviously all too familiar with from a few years back in Kramer Robertson. Just what it was like to coach him, but also, with Kim Mulkey being his mom, being at his games, and now having the opportunity to see her be the women's basketball coach there. What has that whole process been like, and just being able to kind of come full circle in those moments?
Well, Kim was one person that was upset with me for retiring. She says, "I finally get to LSU, and you're gonna quit now." And I said, "Hey, Kim, if I'd have known you were going to come, I would have kept something in the gas tank." But listen, coaching Kramer Robertson was an absolute joy for me. Wonderful young man, talented ball player, great personality. And I thoroughly enjoyed him for 4 years. His first couple of years, I wasn't his best friend, that's for sure, because I was challenging him, to smooth out some of the rough edges of his game. He wasn't in there all the time. But then his junior year, it just really clicked. And I thought he became a great ball player for us. And then we were fortunate he came back for his senior year. And then we were fortunate in 2017 to go to Omaha. We almost won the national championship. We lost in the finals to Florida, which would have been a great way if we would have been able to pull it off for Kramer's career to come to an end at LSU. But he was really a leader of our team, great ball player. He turned out to be a terrific shortstop defensively, was our leader offensively as the leadoff hitter on a really good team. So, I feel like I was a very lucky man to have Kramer Robertson on our program for 4 years.
Awesome. So going off that, I want to ask about another former player as well. That's name is probably pretty familiar. Drew Bianco. We had the opportunity to talk to Coach Bianco earlier today and asked him about Drew's recruitment and you calling and kind of confirming that it was okay to go after Drew. Can you go into what that recruitment was like with Mike being at Ole Miss and just what Drew has meant to your program, but also your relationship with Mike and how that has evolved through Drew being at LSU?
Well, I had a real good grasp of their whole situation because I grew up the son of a college baseball coach as well. And,
right.
Years ago, Mike and I talked. First of all, Mike and I are very good friends. I have greatest respect in the world for Mike. I'm going to miss the competition with Ole Miss. We had some great games through the years. And I always had the utmost respect for Mike, and I hope, he felt the same about me. But we talked years ago before any of his sons were ready to go to college. And I told him about my experience of having played for my father in college. And I told him, that I really didn't recommend it. It's really difficult for a son to play for his father because unless he's the best player on the team and it's obvious he should be playing, there's going to be some hard feelings among the team if you're playing your son and others feel that they deserve to play instead of him. And, I just felt that, it didn't put a strain on the relationship with my father, but, it was different, and I didn't really like it. So I gave him my opinion. When the time came for his son's all of his son's recruitments, he kind of heeded my advice and decided, that his sons should blaze their own trails and not play for him. And so, I like recruiting coaches' sons, as you mentioned. Kramer Robertson is Kim Mulkey's son, and I've had others. I think when they're around the game their whole life, they have great instinct for the game. And Drew is no exception for that. Drew at times in his first 2 years struggled with the bat a little bit. This past year, his junior year, I felt like he made some adjustments and was really doing some great things with the bat for us. But there was never any question about his instincts for the game. He was probably our best base runner. In fact, I wouldn't even use the word probably. He definitely was our best instinctive base runner. He could steal a base. His body type did not make opposing teams think he could really run, but he could really run. And then he also ended up being a terrific defender at multiple positions. He was probably our best defensive center fielder. And, at times he played shortstop, at times he played second base. So Drew became a really valuable player for our team this past year. And I don't think we would have won a regional without his production and his contributions.
So I've only got a couple more for you, Coach, if you don't mind. So firstly, obviously you've got a wall of jerseys there behind you and such a rich history of leading different programs. But being in the SEC for so long, what are you going to remember most about all of the different environments that you encountered?
Well, the old saying, or the new logo, I guess, or new phrase for the SEC is "it just matters more." There's no question about that. I've had a great privilege of working at 4 outstanding institutions that were unique in their own way. A little school in Miami, St. Thomas University, gave me my first head coaching job. I loved working there. We had some really great ball players. I became the first civilian baseball coach at the United States Air Force Academy. I'm so proud of the fact that 5 of my former players became general officers in the Air Force. About 25 became colonels in the Air Force, many of them fighter pilots and, the custodians of our way of life. I loved every second of coaching there. I went to the University of Notre Dame, which obviously the name itself speaks for itself. We had a tremendous 12 years there with wonderful ball players and great student athletes, and it's just the most fond feelings I could ever have. And while I was there, I probably could have left for 6 or 7 other pretty high profile jobs in the South, but I just didn't want to leave Notre Dame. But when Skip Bertman reached out to me as the athletic director at LSU, that was really the one job that, I just felt like if I turned that one down, then, I was going to stay. That meant I was going to stay at Notre Dame the rest of my career. And there was a part of me that just wanted to know, if I had the resources, if I had the tradition and history of a program in the South and the SEC, can you get it done at the highest level? And I think any competitor would like to have that challenge. And I felt at that time when I think I was 49 years old at the time, it was time to take the leap, and hey, you might crash and burn, but the rewards would be tremendous too. It was going to be a great challenge. So I entered into the SEC with my eyes wide open and embraced the challenge of it all, plus all the expectations that were at LSU already because of the great work that Skip had done here. And, I wasn't disappointed. The SEC day in and day out was an amazing challenge. It was a 30-game grind, man, I'm telling you, but any competitor would have loved it. And I loved all the venues that we played in because, the intensity was great. Obviously I enjoyed the most playing at Alec Box Stadium, but, there wasn't any place in the league that I didn't, thoroughly enjoy going to and meeting new people, and the fans, would get on you a little bit, but it was all in good fun and enthusiastic. So I'm going to miss, being in the SEC. I'm going to miss Hoover. I mean, that conference tournament in some ways was more fun than the College World Series, for me. You were playing nothing but great teams. You were playing ranked teams day in and day out in the conference tournament, and winning there almost felt like winning a College World Series. Fortunately, we had some success there, but I'm going to miss all of those experiences. But as I said, I just feel like it was time for me to pass the torch, and now I can kind of reflect back and kind of enjoy the moments that we had.
Perfect. So last one I've got for you, Coach. In 2015, well, I guess to preface that, you mentioned Skip Bertman being the athletic director whenever you took over at LSU. Having won the Skip Bertman Coach of the Year award in 15, how much did that mean to you, just having learned under his tutelage and knowing him personally, and I guess being able to connect with either the greatest, I guess, or if you want to debate it, one of the greatest to ever coach college baseball?
Well, receiving Coach of the Year awards, are really team accomplishments, and our 15 team was really outstanding. We went to the World Series with every expectation of winning it that year. We lost a tough game after having a lead against TCU in game 1. Alex Lang then pitched a great game for us to beat Cal State Fullerton, and then we lost another tough game to TCU. So we didn't leave with the trophy, but we had a great season. I think we won 55 games or something that year. Won a lot of championships, just not the national championship. So, when you receive a Coach of the Year award, whether it has Skip's name on it or any other thing, it's really not a reflection necessarily on the coach as much as it is just on the team itself, and what a great year that we had. But, getting an award with Skip's name on it sure had some extra special feeling to me, because Skip is one of my mentors. I've known him since I was probably 11 years old. My dad and he were both both baseball coaches in South Florida at the same time. So I knew him when I was just a young boy, played against his team. He was a high school coach, coached against him when I was at St. Thomas and he was at the University of Miami, followed his career at LSU throughout my time in coaching. And then it was a dream really for him to reach out to me and feel that I was the right guy to lead the LSU program. So, a lot of people were afraid of working at LSU because of Skip's shadow, but I really embraced it, Jake. I just thought, yeah, there's going to be pressure. There's no question about that. But to have Skip right there as a counsel and some, a good friend that wanted to see me succeed was very motivating for me. And I'm glad I came to LSU, no regrets.
Perfect. Well, Coach, that is going to do it for me. I've got to hop off, but like I said before, thank you for the time. I'll let Mitch take it, but on a personal note, just, thank you for everything you've meant to college baseball. It was really cool to be able to watch you guys in action last year, and just, I guess, good luck in retirement. And again, thank you for everything you've done for the sport.
Thank you, Jake, and good luck with your future marriage.
Appreciate it. Let's thanks, Mitch, for going ahead and throwing that one out at the beginning of this interview. You guys have a good night.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate you, man. Enjoy it. Coach, I want to ask you about the SEC tournament. Obviously, LSU is probably one of the most successful teams in the SEC tournament under your watch. 2016, Rally Possum. Everybody knows the story. I hate that Jake has to miss this, because him and I were going back over favorite LSU stories, and this one was like number one. Rally Possum 2016 Arkansas game. What in the world do you remember from that game, and what do you take away from literally a possum running out on the field, which, and by the way, this is the most LSU fashion way possible, and you guys pull off the win over Arkansas?
Well, that was a crazy year. Arkansas was actually having a tough season that year. I think they ended up going like 7-23 in conference play. And I like Dave Van Horn. He and I are friends, and we confided in each other a lot about a lot of things. And I knew he was struggling that year, and they came into the box, but with a lot of talent, but for some reason they just weren't having a good year. And they jump out to a 9-1 lead on us. And they're playing great and we're playing terrible. It was an awful combination for us. And all of a sudden, we chip away a little bit. And I think we scored a run or two. And then, of course, the possum ran on the field and the crowd's going nuts about the possum. And he's growling at the Arkansas players as they're trying to corral him. Next thing you know, there's a ground ball to their shortstop, who's a really good player named Bernal. And he throws it away at first base. And that just started the momentum of the night. And we ended up tying the ball game in the 9th inning. And then I think Greg Dykman hit a sacrifice fly to tie the game. And then in the bottom of the 10th inning, Kramer Robertson, who had been hit in the mouth earlier in the game, he had lost a throw in the lights. The outfielder, one of our outfielders, was making a throw into the infield. And Kramer lost it in the lights and it hit him right in the mouth. And he had a big fat lip and a gauze in his mouth. Anyway, he came up with a runner on. Jake Fraley was on second base. He hit a ball in the 4-hole between first and second. And their second baseman made a really good stop on the ball, like a sliding glove hand type stop. But Kramer hustled like crazy and he beat the throw to first base. Well, our third base coach thought the ball was going to get through. So he's kind of waving Jake Fraley home. And then he puts the brakes on him at the last second. So Fraley slams on the brakes because the first baseman has the ball. And now he goes diving back into third base. Well, the first baseman throws the ball across the field, throws it errantly. So the ball goes to the wall. And our third base coach is screaming at Fraley to get up. But the crowd noise is so loud, he can't even hear him. Eventually, he saw what was happening. He got up, raced home, and we won the game. And the Rowley Possum lives in infamy.
Coach, fast forward 2 years, you've got Todd Peterson's pinch hit thing, which provided the greatest soundbite of any SEC tournament history. I mean, that was possibly literally the greatest interview you guys ever had. Talk about that moment, because I see the big smile on your face. And every LSU fan, every college baseball fan, everybody talks about that moment with Todd Peterson's pinch hit.
Mitch, it's amazing. I coached 15 years. We won a national championship, went to Omaha 5 times. I think we won 6 tournament titles. I mean, we had, relative amount of success. And it seems like everybody associates my tenure at LSU with Todd Peterson's at bat in Hoover that night. It's crazy. I went to Arizona last week to play golf with my good friend Jim Hendry, and the cart boy at a golf course in Arizona, as he's loading my bag onto the cart, asked me about Todd Peterson and his at bat in Hoover in 2000. And what year was that? 18, 19. It's crazy the things that people remember. In the moment, I'm just trying to manage our team to a winning game. And, the only reason Todd even batted was because Daniel Cabrera had come through with a 2-out RBI single to give us the lead. And now I want to leave Todd in the game to pitch. Had say they had pitched around Cabrera and loaded the bases, I would have had to pinch hit for him because we had to go for the win, And I had Chris Reed waiting in the on-deck circle to hit. But once Cabrera got the base hit and put us on top, now I wanted Peterson to stay in the game. We had lost the DH earlier in the game because I pinch ran for the catcher and had to move our first baseman into catch and put our DH at first base, not knowing that the game would go 12 innings and that spot would end up coming up, But anyway, Austin Bain was runner on third base, and they made a pitching change. And during the huddle, he convinced me to let Peterson hit because I had told him I don't want him to get hurt, run the risk of him getting hurt. Just stand there and take strikes, and then let's go out and get 3 outs and win the game. And Austin Bain convinced me to let him hit. So I turned to Peterson and I said, Todd, do you even know how to hit? And he looks at me straight in the eye and says, oh, coach, I hit bombs in high school. I think he used the word nukes, actually. I hit nukes in high school. I said, you did? Well, everybody hit in high school, right? I didn't know if he hit or not, but I assumed he did. The pitchers, if you're good enough to be recruited to college baseball, he must have been a good enough athlete to hit in high school, right? So I had took him at his word. Well, then of course he almost hits the home run, doubles off the wall for 2 more runs. And everybody's going nuts because Todd Peterson hit a double for 2 runs. I had no idea he had never hit in high school. And then of course, the story, we're in the press conference and one of the reporters asked Todd, when was the last time you had a meaningful at bat? And he, with a straight face, starts to say, well, I guess in high school. And then he stops himself in mid-sentence and turns to me down on the dais and he says, Coach, I have to be honest with you. I didn't hit in high school. I couldn't believe it. That was not scripted, I can assure you.
So were you more mad or were you more like, okay, I don't know how this happened, but it's a great moment?
Oh, no, I thought it was hilarious that, I took him at his word. He didn't tell me the truth. I'm glad. And then I said, I'm glad you lied to me. He had a 2-run double. It worked out well for us.
Coach, staying on the topic of Hoover, obviously with our podcast name, Hit It To Hoover. What was that allure like playing in Hoover? I've asked a lot of people this who've gone to Hoover. I've been to Hoover once a couple of years back when I think Ole Miss played you guys in the SEC championship game. And driving up, you see the magnolia trees and it opens up. And it's something that gives you chills, even as a baseball fan. Talk about that as a coach and what Hoover meant to you as a coach.
We had to bring up that Ole Miss game. I think that's the only time we ever lost in the finals, if I'm not
mistaken.
It
was.
Yeah, I think we won, and during my time, we won 6 titles there. And I can tell you, every time we won the SEC tournament, it gave our team tremendous confidence as we went into the NCAA tournament. In 2009, when we won the national championship, Mitch, we won every title we could win. We won the SEC West. We won the regular season title. We won the conference tournament, of course, the regional and super regional, besides the national championship. But when you win in Hoover, it just makes your team believe they can beat anybody in the country because you're playing the best teams in the country. But I never got tired of going to Hoover. I always thought that it was an awesome experience for our players. When you would drive up to the stadium and there would be all the different schools, Winnebagos with their flags flying, and the LSU fans would start, as they saw your bus going by, all the tailgaters would start cheering for you. And when you entered the stadium, especially on championship day, and the crowd was going nuts, cheering for you, it just sent chills up your spine. And for whatever reason, our players just embraced that whole environment, loved playing there. And, because of that, we had a lot of success and it was a lot of fun.
Coach, I want to ask you about those LSU fans. Obviously, LSU fans are some of the greatest fans in all of college sports, if not the greatest. And I've had the honor of being around them and having fun with them. Quick note, I grew up a Kentucky fan. So LSU fans, when they would travel to Lexington or travel to Oxford, I'd go party with them because they were fun people. And I had the opportunity to do that this past football season. Great. I love LSU fans. Coach, talk about a game at Alex Box Stadium. Of course, at Hoover, LSU fans would take that place over, and it looked like Baton Rouge North.
Well, first of all, Mitch, let me say this. I promise I won't bring up the Bluegrass Miracle with you being a Kentucky guy, okay?
Come on now, Coach.
Playing at home in Alex Box Stadium is kind of an experience. It's difficult to describe to people. When you're standing on the top step of the dugout as the head baseball coach, and there's 10 to 12,000 people in the stands, and you're saying to yourself, your job that night is to send the fans home happy. It's a little bit of pressure, but I loved it. I loved the expectations. I loved the way that our crowd really got into the games. It just was an amazing experience. And then when we would travel, regardless of where we went, even in the regular season, certainly to Hoover, and certainly when we went to Omaha, LSU fans travel well, fortunately we were able to get to Omaha many times. And of course they went many times with Skip. So, I think LSU fans kind of thought it was like they're born privileged to go to Omaha every year. So when we didn't go, there were a lot of fans that were disappointed, because they were Christmas gifts for their children, going to Omaha in June. Like it was just ordained that you were supposed to go to Omaha every year. So when we didn't go, they were disappointed. Hey, when we didn't win and come back with the championship, they were disappointed. The coaching at LSU is not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. The expectations are very high. But I said it many times, Mitch, in many speeches that I gave, that you can't speak with a forked tongue. You can't have a wonderful stadium, great history and winning tradition, largest fan base in the country. We led the country in attendance, I think, for 25 years until the pandemic year struck. You can't have access to really good players, playing a great conference, good weather. You can't have all those things and then talk out of the other side of your mouth and say, yeah, but don't expect much out of us, because the pressure is too great. You have to take it all. If you're gonna jump in here at LSU, you have to know what you're getting into. You have to know the expectations. And, sometimes we met the expectations, sometimes we didn't. I think the by and large, the majority of LSU baseball fans were proud of, the tenure, the era that I had at LSU. Listen, as a coach and fans, there's one similarity we both have, and that is you never win enough to satisfy you. I sat with my son a couple months ago and said, we would have won that championship in 17. And then my son said to me, Dad, if we'd have won the one in 17, you'd be sitting here saying, I wish we'd have won the one in 13, or I wish we'd have won the one in 15, or, you never win enough to satisfy you as a coach, and certainly you don't satisfy the fans. But by and large, I think me as a coach and most of the fans of LSU baseball felt that it was a pretty successful, run that we had.
Coach, I've got two more questions for you. Last one's going to be a personal question. But this next question, Coach, talk about the development of SEC baseball. Obviously, when you look across the league, Kentucky's got a new stadium. Auburn's got brand new facilities. Ole Miss is renovating. Mississippi State is renovated. LSU is renovated. Talk about the development of SEC baseball and how important is it to continue to pour money into that sport and the growth of SEC baseball across the conference?
Well, Mitch, first of all, I always told my players and fans the history of SEC baseball. See, I went to LSU as a freshman out of Miami, Florida in the fall of 1975. Our baseball coach, wonderful man by the name of Jimmy Smith, his main job was he was the equipment manager for the football team. So essentially, he was a part-time baseball coach. People find that hard to believe because they think of SEC baseball today, and that would be an unheard of development for a coach of a SEC team to be the equipment manager for the football team. But it shows how much SEC baseball has grown. Let me give you a little history lesson. When Ron Polk took the job at Mississippi State, he had been the coach at Georgia Southern. He kind of forced their university at Mississippi State to take baseball seriously. He was the ultimate ambassador for baseball. He promoted it. People from all over rural Mississippi brought their Winnebagos down to, or RVs, whatever, to Starkville, and they'd camp out for the weekend. And he started drawing pretty big crowds. And he had players like Palmeiro and Will Clark and Brantley and Big Pen, and they're going to Omaha. And all of a sudden, baseball became a pretty big deal at Mississippi State. I think he went there in about don't quote me on this for sure, but it was probably around 1978 or so, maybe 77, that he took the job at Mississippi State. Well, in 1983, Skip Bertman was named the coach at LSU, and obviously Skip knew how to do it. So he developed a great program in Baton Rouge. Well, now, all of a sudden, you have this wonderful rivalry between Mississippi State and LSU. And both teams are going to Omaha, and both teams have future major leaguers on the team. And the most amazing thing happened. People started coming to the games in droves, big crowds. They didn't even have enough seats for the people, okay? Well, what happens is the athletic directors around the conference and presidents around the conference started looking at what was going on in Starkville and what was going on in Baton Rouge. And they started asking themselves, man, I wonder if we put some resources into our baseball program, hire a good coach, give them a budget, build a facility. Could we now have a baseball program that our community could be proud of and that may even be self-sufficient so that they could pay for themselves? And so that's what happened. You started seeing all these schools that really were just giving lip service to baseball. All of a sudden they hire good coaches. They start putting money into the program. They build facilities. And now you've got every team in the league. Anybody can beat anybody on a given day. And this is, Mitch, why I call the SEC the major leagues of college baseball. Meaning, when you think about a major league team, the worst team in the major leagues is going to win 60 games and lose 100, right? Well, those teams to win 60 games have to be filled with major league caliber players, right? The same thing is true in the SEC. The worst team in the SEC is still going to be filled with SEC caliber players that in many ways are going to be future major leaguers. When we won the national championship in 2009, the only series we lost the entire year was a home series to Tennessee. Tennessee finished in last place that year in the SEC, and they had 3 future major leaguers on that team. And they were the worst team in the SEC that year. So every day in the SEC, it's going to be a battle. And it's only going to continue to grow because I just think with the way the NCAA has become restructured, there's more autonomy to each conference. And our commissioner, Greg Sankey, really believes in baseball. He loves, SEC baseball, and he's going to want to see it continue to get better and better. So I didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime, but now with all the developments of the last few years, I think you're going to see scholarships increase, college baseball, at least in the SEC. Salaries already are being paid at a high level for coaches. Coaches are under a lot of pressure to win. There's huge crowds coming to the games. I believe it's just going to continue to get better and better.
Coach, last question I have for you. And you're retired. You're playing golf. I'm kind of jealous. I wish I could play as much golf as you do, Coach. But I want to talk to you. What do you want your legacy to be, not only at LSU, but on college baseball? And what has college baseball and LSU meant to you personally?
Well, first of all, thank you for your bringing this up, Mitch. I'm humbled to be talked about like that, but I went into coaching many years ago as the son of a college coach, and all I ever wanted to do really was impact young people's lives. And I wanted to be a teacher and a coach and work with youngsters and help prepare them for the challenges of life, teach them that what it takes to be successful on a baseball field today will be the same qualities that you'll use later on in life to be a success in whatever endeavor you so choose. And that's always been my guiding light. The reality is, in order to have a long career, you have to have some success too. And I don't make any apologies for wanting to be successful. I think it's the American way. I can tell you, I never broke rules. I never looked for shortcuts to do it. In fact, I purposely searched out the hard way to do it, because when we won championships, I wanted it to really mean something to our players and to me, that they knew that we did it the right way. And I hope that that's my reputation out there in college baseball, that he was a man of integrity, that he treated people the right way, that, his teams played hard, but with good sportsmanship, that he was successful, and that his kids got better while he was there. And, he was a championship caliber coach. I love college baseball. It's been my whole life. And I'm kind of sad, today to be talking about it in the past tense, because, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it a lot. And I'm not sure, what the future holds for me. Maybe, there'll be some role I can have in college baseball to help grow it as it can, as we go through the years. If not, I'll just go to the golf course every day and try to get my handicap down. But it's been like the honor of my life to not only coach at LSU, but all the 4 schools that I got to coach at, and simply to coach in college baseball. I hope I've been able to provide a little bit of a sample for young coaches to follow. And, you know, if I did that and set an example for some coaches, then I will feel complete in what I did.
Coach, thank you so much for joining the Hit It To Hoover podcast. We really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, Mitch. It's good to talk baseball.